We
Hello, welcome everybody. We are now live. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. So good to be here with you all and excited for today's panel. We've got some amazing people here with us today and a couple of my co-hosts that you guys have seen before that I've done so much work with that truly love so much, Joan of Angels and Alan Steinfeld. But before we get into introductions, I just want to say that this is the ET hybrid panel, past, present, and future. And what that means is, the past awareness of the hybridization that has happened to our human planet and genetics, ancient DNA experiments that have resulted in modern day human. Present, what does this have to do for the present moment? What's currently going on? And what are the messages that we have from the stars with this awareness of not just star seeds and extraterrestrial beings existing, star beings existing, but also within the hybridization of humanity. And the future, of course, what does this mean for our future? And I'm extremely excited to be, having these individuals with us today because I've worked with them before and truly love the awareness that they share. We are also doing a hybrids conference in a couple of weeks, which we're going to go over in a second here. But let me first pass it over to Joan. Joan and I just arrived here in Northern California. We're on our way up north. And we just got to the hotel in time to do this live broadcast. So the universe brought us here. Spirit guided us to make sure that we're on time for this. So welcome, Joan. Thank you for being here with us.
I'm very excited to be here. I'm looking forward to the conference, especially the hybrids, since it's just that it's so present for so many of us now. And I think it's really important to understand why the program, how we can work with it, how to even know for some people out there that they are hybrids. I've been in touch with ETs, I think my entire life when I look back on it, and it takes a family to understand what's going on for you. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Joan. And Alan, brother Alan from New Realities. We're also live on New Realities right now too.
Yes. Well, Neil, just as a baseline, I think we, of course, all are hybrids. Every human being on the planet is a hybrid of many, many different races. Because did you ever notice how we humans are so different than the rest of the earth animals? We're in these animal bodies, but we're not animals on the level of consciousness. So somehow there was a fusion of higher consciousness within the genetic codes of the earth material vibration of life. And we are this hybrid. I say in my book that we actually are the ETs. So there's that level. And then there's the next level where people have come with that awareness. Of course, most people walking around just think, they evolved from apes, and maybe they did, but, there's a higher level.
Yeah.
Seems like that. No, but there's a higher level happening here that we, as we bring awareness to our hybrid starseed connection, will help activate the rest of humanity.
Yeah. And there's not only the hybridization that could be happening on the physical level, but there's also hybridization of souls. There's so much occurring, out there. And when it comes to the hybridization program in the past, and this is kind of what really stemmed my curiosity originally for hybridization, was looking at ancient texts that referred to it. And when we talk about the hybridization in the past, one thing within Darwinism, for example, is there is no transitory fossils from Homo erectus to Homo sapien. There's no, they've been looking for it ever since the beginning of that theory. And we've just taken it as, acceptance now. Whereas where was the shift? When did we shift from one species to another species? And there is no actual record of that, which really, goes
you're
into
right. Getting back to Darwin, not saying there's not such a thing as evolution, because of course there's evolution, but there's no in-between species from a dolphin to a land animal. There's no in-between species that goes from like an anteater to an elephant. There's a lot missing in the fossil records that science just likes to gloss over and say, oh yeah, things evolve. And I think they did, but there's what I call punctuated evolution, which is like, and I think I talked about this in my morphogenetic class, is there cosmic rays enter our genetics and give us a burst of the next octave of becoming. And that's why I think there's maybe a gap between generations. That's just my theory. So we're going to hear these beautiful women talk about what they think is going on from the past. How did we get here? Who are we? What is this hybrid nature, perhaps, or human nature that we are? So do you guys want to introduce some of our guests?
Yeah, let's go for it. Do you want to go ahead and introduce Barbara?
Barbara Lamb. Okay, so today we were talking about you, Barbara, and I was telling everyone how I met you at a crop circle conference, taking a tour of the crop circles and how profound your work has been. And even when I first met you, I actually had a regression because I really wanted to know who I am. So you're so known, for everyone. Barbara's just really known in the UFO ET world, especially for your work in doing regressions and your work in actually letting us know the kinds of hybrids, the kinds of beings that people see. So I think it's great that you're here. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan.
I'll introduce Geraldine Orozco, who's a superstar in this field of hybrids and ETs, and she uses her intelligence and her intuition to start to tune into these genetic codes, and genetic codes are key to our evolution. And Geraldine's really at the forefront of understanding this moment in the evolutionary process and where we've come from and where we're going. So I always enjoy having her on the panel. So thank you, Geraldine, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here, Alan, Neil, Joan.
Was that a fair introduction?
Oh, amazing introduction. Thank you.
Just checking.
All right. So we're also happy to introduce Jacqueline Smith, and she has authored 2 books, Animal Communication, Our Sacred Connection, and her latest book, Star Origins and Wisdom of Animals, Talks with Animal Souls. She believes we are all star beings here on Earth and that the animals are star beings as well. She's also a certified hypnotherapist, gifted psychic healer, speaks star and light language, and is a metaphysical teacher. So we're just really happy to have you here, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to be able to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you up your sound a little bit, Jacqueline? It's a little low. Neil, do you want to introduce Hildegard?
Yes, and I'm also excited to bring Hildegard here after she's been on a few events, known her for quite some time now, and has been on, I think you were on the Walk-ins conference, the first one that we did just over a year and a half ago. And a little bit about Hildegard. She grew up in Germany as a professional background in languages, international trade, and broadcast journalism, lived in Europe, South Africa, Canada, where she raised 4 children, is an intuitive awareness consultant, a speaker, writer, and poet. During her early 30s, she had several NDEs, near-death experiences, and at age 33 had a soul exchange walk-in experience. This opened up her to a continuous telepathic communication and support for her own androgynous soul aspect, Lumar. So welcome, Hildegard. It's good to see you again.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be with you today.
So there is a question on the chat, unless you want to go to what you were thinking, Neil, for the first question.
Yeah, no, let's go with that question. We can just flow.
All right, we'll go with the question, but I do want to go back to your question. Okay, Brad asked, do the human gray hybrids have the same soul as Earth humans, or say Pleiadian humanoids? I mean, so it's really about the nature of the soul, and I don't know. That's a good question. Geraldine, do you want to take that first, and we'll go around?
Yeah, sure. The way that I have explored, not only through personal experience with grays and also through regression therapies and also with other contactees, is kind of an overview understanding that there are, first of all, many different kinds of grays, different ranges of frequency which they manifest in form. And every single one of these different kinds of grays, depending on the vibrational frequency that they hold within them, would probably be a way to understand the level of soul source incarnation in their manifestation that is available to them. So the lower density grays, the ones that are working more in parasitic groups, have lesser of their code of DNA access in order to access soul essence. The grays that are on the more higher range scale have higher aspects of their genetic data available so that they can access source through their body, source being the soul manifestation. So this is what I have seen.
Great. Well, I think we have to define soul too. And
Yeah.
also, and I think for me, I think it is a connection directly to source, which is the full embodiment of the soul, but then maybe other beings have fractal parts of that. But Jacqueline, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, my perspective is that, with the soul, there can be all the different aspects of the star beings. And so when it integrates with other forms, like with the human form, that for me, that sets, it comes into that part of the gray, comes in to activate the codes if we're being a human here on Earth or an Arcturian. And I agree with the higher frequencies coming in to help awaken the consciousness of not only, we'll say, the human, but of the soul itself, to continue to help expand the consciousness of the whole soul as a whole, if that makes sense.
It makes a little sense. Can you clarify just a little bit more? Because you said that when a gray comes in alignment with a human soul and there's some sort of integration, I think you said that it activates codes. What do you mean exactly by that?
So let's say a higher frequency gray, and again, gray is a kind of a catch-all term. That comes in, that aspect of the gray, the DNA, which is in the human, can continue throughout that human's lifetime to integrate into the field of the human in a deeper way and continue to activate the codes so that that person can access those codes with that part of themselves of that higher gray or Arcturian or Syrian.
Well, to add to that question, I'll ask Barbara, for that matter, this is from Lisa online, why does any alien race want to make hybrids, or any race, Barbara? Like what? Yeah.
From the many regressions that I've done with people who experience extraterrestrial contact and other dimensional contact, I've gathered quite a bit of information about the hybrids. In these many years since 1991 that I've been doing this work, there have been different things said by the extraterrestrials during the regressions. They're said to the person, and once in a while they'll talk to me conducting the regression. So that's always been very interesting. And when I put it all together in all of these years since 1991, there have been 16 different reasons why certain groups of extraterrestrials do the great effort of creating ET human hybrids. Wow. So the most common one that I've heard from the Greys and a few other species as well is that they create the hybrids because they are trying to save their own race. In other words, over millennia, they have been losing their ability to reproduce in the way that they were accustomed to reproducing, and that varies according to the different species. But anyway, they've given a lot of reasons why they have been losing their ability to reproduce. One of them is that they have been doing so much cloning of their own kind that they have just sort of let the natural way of reproducing just become atrophied. And another reason for losing the ability to reproduce is that some of them have been traveling so much through space that they picked up a lot of radiation.
Oh,
And that radiation has made it very difficult to reproduce their species.
Wow.
Yeah, and enough of them, apparently, of any one species, do a great deal of space travel, not just a few from one group. So that's pretty permeating the society of that group of beings that they cannot reproduce. But also there are some more sort of what we might call favorable reasons for creating the hybrids. One of them is to provide sort of a go-between group of people, that is the hybrids, who would be able to relate to human beings and relate to their species of extraterrestrials. In other words, they could travel there, as many of our people actually do, and they could be here as well. They could live here, and they could live on a spaceship, or they could live on another planet. Another reason given is that these beings would like to enhance and upgrade the human race. In other words, they see that we have amazing qualities that many of them don't have, but they have qualities also that we don't have or we're not using very frequently. So they would like to upgrade in terms of intelligence, intuition, telepathy, healing abilities, psychic abilities. So they very often instill these abilities in the hybrids who are living here on Earth. I'd like to say right away that when I was doing this work for, maybe the first 12 years or so, the hybrids that I was aware of were always hybrids who were living on the ships. They were not human enough to be able to come here and stay very long, definitely not to live here. So I was regressing many people who had hybrid children, whom eventually they came to know and feel very favorable about, by the way, very loving toward. And then I was getting to sort of know about many of the hybrids who have grown up on the ship and are living on the ship. So I thought for the first 12 years of doing this work that that's pretty much the end of the story, that the hybrids were always living on the ship or living on a different planet. However, I had the wonderful serendipity in somewhere along in the 2000s at a UFO conference, the International UFO Congress, to look to my right, and there was a woman standing there, a woman with the most amazing big eyes. I had never seen her before. And I just on impulse said, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but you remind me of a hybrid." And she smiled a big smile and she said, "I am a hybrid." That woman was Cynthia,
Yeah.
who became a very dear, special friend and is no longer with us on Earth. She is on the ships working with some of her beings whose genetics that she has. Anyway, that opened my eyes to thinking, wow, okay, some of the hybrids are human enough that they can live here with us. 2 years later at the same conference, I met another woman and immediately said to her, "Well, I hope you don't mind my saying this, but you remind me of a mantis being." And she leaned forward and she said, "Good for you. I am a mantis being."
wow. Those are great pickup lines. Those are so
I
good.
know, right?
So anyway, that began my knowing hybrids. And then I started to be invited to gatherings of people in Southern California where there were hybrids who were living here amongst us. They were wonderful people. I got to know some of them quite well. And I was really involved with that. And then suddenly one day I got a phone call from Miguel Mendonça, this wonderful writer in England. And he was very interested in ET human hybrids and had heard somehow that I had been getting to know some of them. So he asked if we could collaborate together and write a book, which we did. The book is called Meet the Hybrids, The Lives and Missions of ET Ambassadors on Earth. So I still am meeting with people who have hybrid children, and I'm meeting with people here and there who believe they may be, and I believe they may very well be, ET human hybrids living here as human beings. So it's a big scope of
Wow.
hybridization going on with many, many different species involved. not
Thank,
just the little
that.
birds.
thank you, Barbara. It's always great because you have so much knowledge in this field. But Hildegard has a wealth of information from so many different perspectives on this as being a hybrid walk-in, part human. I mean, where do you see it going and coming from, actually, Hildegard? Like, why are there hybrids? Why are you here at that moment? And where, well, we can talk about where we're going later, but what do you think? Is she frozen?
Yeah, I think she's frozen.
Oh, anyway,
Yeah.
while she's frozen, maybe we should just do a little commercial for the hybrid conference.
Yeah,
Neil.
let's do that. I just want to say real quick, Barbara, do you remember you brought the mantis being lady to my first conference in 2012 when you spoke? You
Ah,
introduced me to her.
that's right.
Yeah. Cynthia Crawford was there too. Yeah, that was my first kind of experience with that. I think you said to me, what do you think she looks like or something? And I kind of guessed because she does have like mantis features for sure. Mhm.
I know it isn't, and she stayed with me for a whole week. She lives back
Right.
east, but she stayed with me for a week, during which I brought her to your conference. And
Right.
every day when I was with her, I felt more and more convinced that she is not only a hybrid, but she is a part mantis being.
Right.
And she had all kinds of wonderful abilities. She had telepathy with animals when we would take walks and meet neighborhood dogs and cats. And she could talk with them, and she knew the history of them just by looking at them and talking to them for a couple of minutes. And then she would tell the owner of the dog, for instance, the whole history of that dog before he came to live with that man, the rescue dog.
Wow.
And the owner said, "Oh my goodness, how do you know that? That's really accurate." Anyway, I kept witnessing her doing wonderful things, and her main mission, and I think it's a wonderful one, is to meet children whom she can recognize as starseed children.
Mhm.
So psychic and so intuitive. So she'll go to a little child with the mother in a supermarket, for
Right.
instance, and start talking to that child and encouraging the child to learn to use its abilities that it has, the special abilities. She's hoping to form a community. In fact, she is forming a community of these special children.
That's
Wow.
beautiful. She definitely gave off hybrid vibes. That's all I can say. I could feel it.
Let's get Hildegard in here while her connection is stable.
Yeah.
Are you good, Hildegard?
Yeah, hi. I don't know what happened. I was kicked out for some reason, but here I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Why
Yeah.
don't you- go ahead. Address that question. Yes.
So regarding the grace, I have no personal contact with entities that I would recognize as grace. However, I look at it all from a consciousness perspective, much like Barbara was earlier saying as well. We are part of creation. Every aspect of creation is in a stage of evolution. And as such, we all contribute to the evolution of another, whether this is on the 3D level or an other dimensional level. And I believe as human beings, we have made agreements, or I'd rather say, as a specific aspect of consciousness, before I take on a certain form, I make agreements with all sorts of other souls so they can contribute something to my growth, and hopefully I contribute to theirs as well. And that can take various forms. And that can mean that, for instance, an individual starts seeing things that don't fit in the frame of reference of the conditioned logical 3D mind, which operates on 5 senses, hopefully. And in many 3D people, we don't have even access to our 5 senses initially. And we have to go through a stage of inner work or getting sick or having upsets in our lives that then we have to ask ourselves, how did I get here? How can I improve? How can I figure out what's going on with me? And I think that's, at least for me and many experiences that I had the privilege of meeting, have gone through that same journey. So as far as other intelligences, having gone through the same process, have made mistakes that led them to the fact that they cannot reproduce, or that their habitat, their environment, their planet has been destroyed, and that they then maybe had the technology to go out and find life somewhere else and intermingle and use what they are good at and learn. And I love what Barbara says. And then they have what we need, and then we can learn from them. And in fact, I wouldn't put it by those. I don't like labels. I really don't like the label ET and Earthling and walk-in and whatever, because I think we are all in unity. We are one consciousness. And over time, we have fallen prey to segregation and separation. And the whole journey for me is that as a little spark of the divine infinite consciousness is embedded in this physical machinery. And then it's up to me whether I choose to work with it, learn about it, and see that I can reach a different state of consciousness, which opens different channels in me, if you so will. And I can then draw on, let's call it divine energies, bring it into that physicality, heal it, transform it. And then I need to allow to bring my gifts forward to share with others. And in so doing so, it will give me joy. It will uplift me. It will send a ripple out into the field of all potentiality. And I can transform my life. We are creators, more or less conscious or unconscious. And I don't really see a difference whether you are a gray, or you come from the Pleiadians, or you come from Andromeda, or wherever. There is one difference, though, because on this planet, we are all on different levels of awareness. And in different realms, there is a universal, let's say, I can't even say universe, I don't know how to say it. But whenever somebody learns something, it's immediately available to everybody, because they have not, at this moment, let's say, gone through the divide and conquering. And I think as a walk-in, and in the early 1990s, I didn't have a computer. We didn't have words to express what I experienced. But now we can use that term software. We have a hardware on our computer, and we can choose various software programs. And in our evolution to a different level of awareness, we can make choices to use different softwares, and different souls have a plan to tune into different vibrations, to draw for their particular life purpose from those. So to me, it's a wonderful experience. And I see everybody, as Alan said, as we began this discussion, we are all walk-ins. All human beings on this planet, not walk-ins, hybrids. We are all on this journey of conscientization, if you so will. Every part of creation is on a particular evolutionary path. And eventually, depending on the choices we make, go back to that spark from which everything originated. Call it prime creator, prime source. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hildegard. I 100% agree with the whole concept of the labels, you know, and if you look at everything that you said, actually, but if you look at yuga cycles, the whole concept of the cycles of time, the evolution, the devolution, it was even said in ancient scriptures that this yuga cycle is the age of hierarchy and authority. And within that, we create this hierarchical kind of system where this dimension means you're more tapped in, walk-in means you have this connection. And then we identify with these things in order to kind of like amplify how great we are because we are from there. You know, not everybody, but these labels kind of give us something more to identify and to grab onto and to recognize parts of ourselves. But the ultimate way to really transcend this is to let go of all the labels, because ultimately it's all levels of awareness, right? That's the walk-in hybridization is one level, but then as you go bigger and bigger picture, you get to the universal picture, it's all just one frequency experiencing itself infinitely, you know, and it's like,
yeah. And again, you could even look at this as we are all coming back from a future because we now look back and realize, oh, we didn't do so good in grade 1 or grade 2 or whatever, if you want to use that school model, right? And if we allow ourselves for these fuel injectors, you know, we spoke earlier about depending also on where the planet is in the big cosmic picture, our DNA pops, we are awakening, and many other intelligences contribute to that awakening in one way or another. Now, if we might perceive it as negative or positive, traumatic or joyful, but that doesn't change the fact that we have the ability of transmutation. We can heal our wounds, we can heal our physicality, and we can gain the confidence to trust our inner knowing, which I cannot prove for the longest time, let's say. But then in so doing, eventually we will bring new innovation, new ideas, build new communities, find a way for us to support those that are in resonance with where we are at and vice versa. And I think that is really the miracle of life on this planet in this time.
Well, I have one thing to add that I don't think was brought up. If we go back to this idea of soul, I think there's something special about the human soul. I'm not just saying that because I'm part human, but we as in soul beings have the ability to play the whole keyboard, to go from the lowest to the highest. And there's something magical about that. I think there's something special about seeing the whole range. There's probably higher and lower, of course, that we're not seeing, but there's something that we have, which is like a golden thread that if we can activate us, it allows the body to actually ascend to other levels in the physical. So I think there's a golden key within our DNA when we're activated to the higher levels that allows us to move through the dimensions. And I think maybe other species have that, but I think humans have something that maybe the hybrids are inbreeding into their DNA because they want what we have. That's just my guess. Do you agree with that, Geraldine?
Yes, I really love that Hildegard clarified for us what, source and the soul as it's fractalized into many different manifestations in different dimensional planes, whether humans, ETs, or whatever form they might present themselves as. And the way I look at that is that our genetic code, our DNA, essentially is the base code of all potential organisms in a three-dimensional plane. And so as aspects of that are activated, then, as we know, the morphogenetic field, certain organisms are designed by that instruction to create that form. And that will define the kind of experience that that organism will experience in that dimensional plane, including humans. But in the 3D, three-dimensional Earth plane that we are in right now, anchored physically, we're kind of operating by the law of three, which is creation, to create, to bring to life, feminine, masculine, uniting in order to create the third. And I believe we're experiencing that in many different ways through the hybridization program, but even the concept of seeding life, seeding thoughts, seeding vibrational emanations, seeding frequencies. We are a machine. We are a machine of creation. We are constantly creating many different things. And the hybridization program is one of those, one of the very important things that we are creating. And we have been creating since nonlinear timeline. The alchemical process, this transmutational process that you're talking about, is really, really essential. And it's something that's been hidden from mainstream for all history, because in that is the seed of understanding how we manifest and how we bring to life organisms. The cultivation of life force and the understanding of how we bring to life new souls is really essential, not only to the future of mankind, but to understanding how fragmentation occurs of the human soul and how we can reintegrate and begin to see ourselves once again as source, through all dimensional layers, through the mirrors of ourselves as grays, Arcturians, Pleiadians, whatever is within our field and in our genetic code, allows us the access to see ourselves as one. So the conversation of hybridization is very important, because it's not just about looking at these experiences individually. We're talking about the sustainability of this temporary matrix, but also the aspect and the mechanisms behind co-creation that the human potential has, which is incredibly important. And if we understand that mechanism, we can understand how every single frequency and input into that system can create something that's co-creative or something that's counter-creative. And this is why we have experiences that are very positive and experiences that are very negative in the hybridization program. So.
Interesting. Well, Neil, let's go to a little quick view of what's coming up, because
Yeah, let's do it. Before we do that, John, do you want to comment on anything you heard?
Well, it still gets me. One of the things is that everyone we start off, you said everyone is part hybrid. Oh, what happened to Ellen?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Go ahead.
We
Yes.
start off, everyone is hybrid. Is that true? That every person here has had that kind of encounter? And if not, who is part of the hybrid program? What determines who's going to be part of that? Is it families of people? Like, how does that happen? And I'm really curious about that.
So wait, what are you asking, Joan? Say that again.
So what, maybe we can give this over to Jacqueline. What determines that you're going to be selected for a hybridization program, right?
Right. Well, that's one of the questions. Yes.
Bloodlines, we've seen even TV shows. Remember that show Roswell, where the gray ETs follow the bloodline the whole time? Is like something like that happening? Or yeah, Jacqueline, go ahead.
That's true in my case, that on both my parents' side, there were bloodlines that go way back to them being connected to the star beings. And so I was genetically altered when I was in the womb by the tall white Zeta masters. And I do remember when they did that. So I think bloodlines are very key. And it's also a soul decision to have those experiences coming in as a hybrid. Like I've been told by the star beings that my soul, I have chosen to come in as a hybrid to do the work I'm here to do. I'm a bridge, so I can communicate with star beings all the time and relay what they might have to say, but I'm also in a human body, so I can also talk about what it's like to be human. So, but I do think the bloodlines are very key in this, and they do follow the ancestry of those they have chosen to do this. But
Yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, I would like to just add that in my work, it is very apparent that it is a soul decision before incarnating in this life to have these other ingredients, shall we say, from these other species. And very often it seems like when we trace it back, that the soul of the person I'm working with, who is a hybrid, that soul had previous incarnations before this one as those species whose genetics they were given in this lifetime. So it's a very, very conscious decision. And all of it is about helping to raise the consciousness of humanity. So a soul wanting to come and have a lifetime of raising the consciousness of humanity in various ways can elect to combine with these other races of star beings and can arrange, it's all done on the soul level, to receive the genetics either when the embryo was formed for that soul to incarnate in, or when the soul is already conceived and growing in the mother's womb.
I think we're part of an evolutionary process on many, many levels. I mean, the reason we're having this conversation is to evolve our consciousness. The reason we get together, the reason we do anything is to evolve. And there's the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual evolutions. And sometimes they're happening at different rates, but the whole creation is ongoing into forever, as each moment in a sense is an upgrade. It's just, I feel, yeah, there are jumps and leaps, and then we're trying to drag the rest of humanity who may not want or even know about it along by giving them this information in a way. So it's a really beautiful process. We're all in on whatever level we choose to be in.
Yes, I really resonate with the whole phrase that it's not about the destination, it's the journey that counts. You know, like, because the destination is already chosen, and that's even in the Rig Veda. That phrase is throughout many texts, and the Rig Veda has that whole concept, and that can be taken so many ways. But one of the ways I take it is enjoy the moment, live in the now. Why worry about where you're going to get? Really find the beauty in this moment. And that's the paradox of ascension that I like to speak about so often, is the only way we can create an ascended world is by finding beauty in the present moment, right? So it's like, as if we're always waiting for something in the future to manifest, then we'll always just be given back the same experience. Let's wait for something. And, you know, it's just going to be this, that's what the universe does. It's an unconditional Xerox machine. It copies your most prominent thought, you know? So you put that out there, you're going to get it. So it really is about enjoying this experience and having fun doing it, you know? And
that's what a teacher of mine said. Everyone wants to ascend and no one wants to live. Ascension comes from the process of a life well lived, well enjoyed, well experienced. That's the end. That's just the next level. But yeah, we're here. I totally agree. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah.
I like thinking of this hybridization program then as an energetic and a genetic upgrade for humanity,
like
right? That through this alteration and intervention, it brings us more in alignment with our higher gifts, with our telepathic skills, our psychic skills. So and listening to you guys, I'm really aware that, wow, this is actually injecting into humanity then a higher consciousness.
Right.
Yes.
I'm signing up for the hybridization program. Right? No, I've been in it.
Yeah.
Barbara, one moment. Hildegard, did you want to comment? So let's go Hildegard and Barbara. Then we'll take a pause to share the upcoming conference here. So go ahead, Hildegard.
So just going at the word hybrid program, it sounds like there is another class, right? It's another division. There are those in the hybrid program and those who are not. Well, let me tell you something. The sun shines on everybody. The farmer attends to his entire crop, not just to a select few. What makes maybe this group different, or people who have more awareness about or have done more research and have gone within and found more answers, worked with Barbara, dug out some more subconscious memories and brought them to the forefront. It doesn't ultimately matter, because I think the key is we are conscious in this body now, and we are here more or less to, through our life, as Ellen was sharing, be really that transformative element that kind of bushwhacks through the thicket, the forerunners, create a path, and then in time, others are coming together. I mean, if you would have told me 30 years ago that I would be talking in a hybrid conference, I would tell you, no way. You know what I'm saying? Because the program that is 3D today is completely different than it was last year or years before. And I think that's where the difficulty lies, that we have a certain worldview in which we in this plane have been conditioned. And it's very difficult to let something in. And that is why I think these conversations are so important, because it's really all about accepting and loving where I am in this moment and come from this point of gratitude, no matter how I in my old program thought it should be. No, it's perfect the way you are. There's nothing wrong with anybody. You are where you are supposed to be, and trust. And that to me is faith, that when you go with your highest excitement, you know, Esther Hicks and Jerry in many of their books wrote about that. Do what gives you the most joy while responsible to others you took responsibility on, right? And then everything else will then come together. But we have to be mindful that we have the responsibility to do it. We cannot wait for an Alan or Neil or Barbara or anybody else to do it for us and hear the news on the television that the world has changed. That's not going to happen. I have to change and transform myself, and the way I experience life is my responsibility. And that, I think, is the world that the Rig Vedas maybe talked about, where people had this awareness that they were automatically responsible and joyful and did what they loved doing and what their unique gifts were, and freely contributed to the whole.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And just to tie it in, and we'll go to Barbara right now, just to add to that. And yeah, the actual Rig Veda, when it was written, was about the time that we were supposedly in the Satya Yuga, which was the golden age. So it makes sense that they were at a frequency that was in harmony with the universe and were able to receive these downloads and really know, you know, kind of what the meaning to life is, you know, in some ways. Yeah. Barbara.
Yeah, well, I just think it's a wonderful coming together of human souls and extraterrestrial souls. In other words, a human soul might decide before incarnating into this lifetime to give a life of service. That's the main reason for that soul bothering to incarnate and go through all of that. And then in the meantime, there are star beings who cannot come and live on Earth and do the work that they would like to do to upgrade humanity. So these two get together the star beings and the soul of this one who wants to incarnate. And in the process before birth, usually, the star beings make sure that this forming human life, before being in the womb or in the womb, once in a while after birth, will give the genetics to that person so that the star beings can see that the work that they would like to do to enhance humanity gets to be done. And the soul gets to have these extra abilities and more ability to do the work that this soul came to do. So, I mean, I think it's a wonderful process. We're
Yeah,
very
I mean,
fortunate that we have many of these people who are hybrids.
But Barbara, is there a soul that's just human? I mean, is there a human soul? I mean, isn't souls eternal and universal, the nature of the soul?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. Yes,
Right.
and not only that, but I've been very curious, very wondering for many years about the star beings, whether they have souls. Well, through various means, not my own, but other people's work, I have come to realize that, yes, indeed, the star beings are souls, incarnated as these different species of star beings, and they all are in the same realm that we go to as souls between incarnations. So I had the great pleasure and honor of knowing Dr. John Mack. And John Mack died a couple of months after he was with me for 10 days visiting crop circles in England. I was his crop circle guide. And then after he was killed, he came to me a couple of times. And one of those times was that he was able to speak through one of my clients, my therapy clients. And he spoke for 45 minutes. And that's one of the things that I asked him in that wonderful conversation that I still feel incredibly blessed to have had. And I asked him, in the realm where you are now, John, in other words, what we might call the spirit realm, I said, do you get to know the souls of extraterrestrials? And he said, oh, yeah, they are certainly in this realm, but you wouldn't know the difference unless you really sought it out.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
in other words, most of the souls in that realm, most of the human souls in that realm are there with extraterrestrial souls, but
Mm.
Right,
unless
right.
they're looking for that difference, they would not even notice it.
I didn't know you had a conversation with John after he was a friend, and maybe you should do something with that. Can you print all those conversations up that you've had with John Mack and the?
Well, during the 45 minutes or so, when it was happening, I was so amazed and pleased and blessed that it was happening that I didn't record it in any way. But partway through, when he started to talk about certain things, I thought, oh, I should be writing this down, and grabbed a little tiny piece of paper. There's a little, from a little block of paper, and started writing down some of the things. So I can remember a lot of it. This was in 2004. I can remember a lot of it, but probably not every word.
Because there was another person who talked to John, and he said to her, it's not what you think it is, the alien content. You remember hearing about that?
Yes, he said that to me.
What do you make of that comment? It's not.
Well, I have a big question mark. In other words, we, I think, have tended to think of these beings as being particular, specific individual beings.
Mm.
And that come to people, take them for experiences, and many, many different kinds of things happen with them from the point of view of a person. But he, I think, sees it as much more of an overall realm of consciousness. It's all about consciousness. Even though when we go to a ship, we tend to, or at least people describe it to me, to see as if they are individual beings. But I think that with any of those beings on any one ship, there is so much more mutual shared consciousness and communication.
I think you're right. We're getting to that way, hanging out with Joan and Neil. We were like kind of connecting us less as individuals, but also part of a collective. So
Yeah.
And they're much more aware of the collective. So all of the hybrids, including Jacqueline, whom Miguel and I interviewed for this book, Meet the Hybrids, all of them individually, totally separate from each other, said at some point, we are all one.
right.
Well, I think that these groups have so much more a sense than we do of being, as you say, part of the collective. It's a whole huge group consciousness, and not only between one group on one ship, but I think with all of those consciousnesses, wherever they are.
Right. Did John,
Well,
did John say that to you? Did he say
Yeah.
that to you? Oh,
Yes.
that's you he talked to.
I must
Well-
have said that to you at some point.
Right. No, but I want to just ask Jacqueline, unless you had a question, because Jacqueline, we may all be one, but you are tuning into different frequencies that seem like separation, the different frequencies of being. And how do you kind of bring that together with the fact that we're all one, yet you're accessing different levels and, vibrations?
Well, yes, and the star beings always, they've given this message to me for a long, long time, that we're all one. So my experience has been with the different groups of star beings, they are different frequencies. And so for me, the whole, the cosmos, there are all these different frequencies, which is, however you want to say it, the creator expressing itself in all these different frequencies. So star beings, like to call them my star parents, the tall white Zeta Masters, I just know their frequency, and I had been with them in past lives. Then I was on the ship with Mantis, Nocturian, and I could feel the different frequencies of those beings, but they do have a much greater awareness of being connected to the collective, and don't really think in the individual way, if that makes any sense. They aren't really, they're expressing as a group, and there are individuals who have we could say kind of different personalities, just like humans. But
So they're all one, but they're aspects of the one, I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
that makes sense.
That's
That's kind of like in Hinduism, for example, there's only the Brahma, but that's split into the Brahman, the Vishnu, and the Shiva, and then all the stories and the metaphors are personifications of the aspect of the one. Which is why it's confusing. Is it a polytheistic religion? Is it monotheistic? But it's all like we're all basically just reflections of the one incarnated into infinite experiences on Earth.
And the larger picture is there's no such thing as star beings. I mean,
Star what? Say that again.
There's no such thing as star beings, because we're all one. It's just a matter of perspective. So if I'm looking from an Arcturian point of view, I could look at a human as being the star being or the ET.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a matter of perspective as well. They've shared this with me, and so, but I'm able, just because of my genetics and that, it's just very easy for me to tune in to. I know I can literally feel their frequency, and I know who's going to show up. Whether it's going to be a tall white Zeta master or an Arcturian.
Right.
So I just have, I just know that. So.
Wow. That's incredible. Shall we show the conference site?
Yeah, because we're like halfway through this discussion that's really gone, it's just lit up. It's like,
yeah, I'm really loving where we're going with this. First, I want to show this, but I'm not going to speak too much about this, Alan. So I'm just going to quickly skim through this, let everybody know, and then we're going to get to the Starseed Hybrids Conference. Alan and I will do 3 or 4 broadcasts specifically about this event that we're kind of affiliated with. That is the UFO World Congress in Barcelona, taking place in 2022 this year. So basically in September 2022, excuse me. And if you guys are local or able to fly out there, please go ahead and check out this event. It's going to be amazing. I'll show you some of the speakers. But also,
I recommend this event. It is the World Congress. Linda Moulton Howe is going to be there. Jaime Maussan.
Like the event of Europe,
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Jaime Maussan's the biggest UFO researcher in the world because he talks to all of Latin America. Chris Mellon will be there, right? Who was a former deputy defense secretary under Clinton and Bush. He really is at the leading edge of disclosure. Of course, my good friend Linda Moulton Howe is a genius and the best researcher out there. I don't know many of these others. Anton Parks. What is he do again, Neil?
Anton Parks. I don't know. We can take a look real quick, but we are going to interview a few of these people on Zoom.
Yes.
On YouTube within the next month.
Yes, Anton Parks is Eden and Anunnaki. Yeah, right. He really gets into the Anunnaki lineages, and we're gonna plan on interviewing him for sure.
So go ahead and if you want to attend live again, go to ufoworldcongress.com, and Alan's going to be there. So you'll see Alan. I'm going to be around, but I won't be at the event. And then if you want to sign up for the live stream, go to portaltoascension.org, sign up there. You get thousands of hours of free presentations. But I'm going to go ahead and send the live stream link out. So if any of you guys want to just tune in from anywhere in the world, you can do that as well.
Great. Yeah, it's going to be a great conference. Definitely, if you're in Europe anywhere, or even not, come to Barcelona. We'll really have fun.
Right.
Okay. Now, the main event of coming up on Portal to Ascension.
Coming up in 2 weeks from now is the annual. Well, this is kind of interesting because this hybrid event has become a hybrid of 2 events that we usually do, which is
funny.
the Starseed Summit and the Hybrid Conference are hybridizing themselves together into one to become.
That's funny, Neil. That's really clever. Yeah.
The Starseeds and ET Hybrids Online Conference 2022, just under 2 weeks from now, August 27th, and August 28th. We're going to go for about 8 hours a day with a panel discussion every day. And
tell people who are going to be there. Some of the people here today, of course, the lovely Marina, Sarin, Jacqueline Smith, Jimmy Kuti, Anil, Geraldine, of course, Melanie Ware, me, Sheila Seppi, Tyler Ellison, who channels the Essassani, Mary Rodwell, Mary Edwards is a good friend of Barbara Lamb's. They wrote a book together. My old friend Phil Gruber and Vivian Cheval, who actually is an Arcturian fifth dimensional light code. I wouldn't say walk-in, but embodiment. So what do you have to say about Vivian, Joan? We're going to talk about Vivian.
I am so excited. When I am in her presence, I know I'm in the presence of a full Arcturian. I can feel it. No, I do. And her skin is translucent. She carries such a high frequency that just being with her, guys, tune in on Tuesday. Because it will be.
We're doing a little out of this world interview.
Mm-hmm.
Out of this world.
I like how you said it together too. That's perfect.
We're getting in sync.
Yeah.
We're
So if you
so
want to check this out, go to online events on portal2ascension.org, sign up there. We're just going to show these two events for now. We have some amazing other things to share with you as well, but we'll be doing that when we go live next time.
I just want to say this conversation we're having today is sort of a introduction for people to this conference that's coming up. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we're going to go really deep, and it's just so profound. The information that's going to be shared, the messages that we're receiving, and what this really means for now and future humanity. It's interesting that you might even think, what does star seeds and ET hybrids have to do with any practical steps for my current reality and for my future on Earth? And actually, I feel it has quite a huge impact, especially as we understand and we start to disclose the vastness of our human experience and the origins of humanity, where we came from, why we're here on Earth. As we begin to remember, we've been on this planet of amnesia, where right now we're healing those fractures that are creating remembrance. And as we start to remember who we are and our experiences in the galaxy, we're going to be the star beings, as I think was Hildegard kind of said, or Jacqueline said in this moment, is that we're going to be going out to the stars, and that's within our reality. That's one thing that we can do. And part of that is activating our human avatar to the fullest potential that it has, our brains, our DNA strands, really shifting and utilizing our vehicles for what they're designed for. That brings me to another question that I kind of wanted to pass around the panel here was, I think it was you and I, Alan, we interviewed someone recently where they were talking about an ascension. Yeah, that was a couple of days ago. And that we're not ascending within ourselves. The consciousness is not ascending, but the body is ascending because our consciousness is already expanded at its full potential. So it's more like a physical ascension that's happening, and we're actually taking our human bodies with us rather than, one of the old school cataclysms that reset humanity and then we start all over again. So I kind of want to go around the panel.
Because consciousness is already ascended. We're already.
Exactly. But our bodies aren't able to process the expansion of what's within us, So I feel that would be a good thing to go around with the panel.
Yeah.
Geraldine, if you want to take that and just, what's your whole take on our physical body ascending? I know you talk about a lot of genetic hybridization and upgrades, so maybe that's in alignment with that kind of research.
Yeah, ascension. I think that the entire multiverse is moving and evolving as a mechanism of its existence. It evolves, and we are kind of along for that evolutionary process. But that being said, the mechanisms of the human, which is a manifestation of that fractal of source, has the opportunity to become conscious in this physical vessel. And so when we become conscious and aware of ourselves as consciousness, that's when we can start navigating, becoming aware of multidimensionality, which is our ability to access intuition, higher faculties of our body, and also begin to navigate into dream state, out-of-body experiences in the astral plane and higher dimensional aspects of ourselves, in order for us to understand how to begin to navigate the death, which is ultimately when this consciousness departs from the physical hologram. So I think that ascension is well, it's many things, but the way that we actually can access ascension is through absolute integration of fragmentation of ourselves, which means total awareness of ourselves. Firstly, deprogramming matrix programming, which is all of the indoctrinations, belief and program systems, limiting belief systems of the self, the physical, the identification with the self. And so once you release those programs, you can begin to access your multidimensionality. You become aware of yourself as multidimensional, not just only in the physical. And that's when you can begin to navigate these realms. A lot of times when we become awake for the first time, this is a lot of people that start to have ET, or I think it's interdimensional. I don't think it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional contact. And this is where we begin to see what we've been up to, the fragments of ourselves in other dimensional planes. So a lot of contact is done in dream state, because in dream state is where we're actually navigating these higher realms. So I think that ascension is really the mastery of our lives are in our everyday life, everyday experience, but also the mastery in these dream states and higher dimensional levels. Also, I will add that there is an entire ancestral genetic aspect to ascension, because the souls that come into ancestral lineages are designed in order to have an opportunity to break cyclical traumatic programs that have been passed down genetically through ancestral lineages for, millennia. And the ability to break those contracts and those repetitive patterns allow ascension, not only for that individual organism, but for the entire ancestral lineage. And it also affects the fragments of themselves and the kind of experiences that one can have interdimensionally, like with these interdimensional beings.
Beautifully said. I 100% agree, especially with the breaking programs. Like, that's something that I'm seeing a lot, and having conversations with many people about, like, them having the belief that they've come down to this planet to break the cycles of trauma that have happened in their family, and to like shift things. It's almost like, and I love this analogy that I created, like, is basically there's a singularity, like a black hole singularity, and we've been at the end of the wormhole for quite some time, but the singularity has been pulling us closer and closer and closer. And but the whole thing is that when we're about to drop into the singularity, into the black hole, so to speak, and go on to another dimension, we can't take any of our baggage with us. So we keep going around and around and around, and we're having to break free from all these cycles, right? Karmic cycles, matrix cycles, collective cycles, individual ones, family ties, soul contracts. Who knows what's going on, right? And so right now we've been bombarded with so much stimuli, even on our phones, like everywhere, just nonstop. Like 100 years ago, 50 years ago, right? 40 years ago, not even near this. So what does the stimuli represent? It represents lessons and lessons and lessons to transcend in every single moment. And it's like, what may have taken lifetimes for us to re-experience, we're experiencing daily now. And I feel that these are all just opportunities for us to choose love, to choose compassion, to choose connection, and then we will transcend and ascend into this higher octave of existence, which is just a higher octave of ourselves, of being in harmony rather than in disharmony with ourselves, the planet, and each other, right?
Right. And I just will add really briefly that actually reaching that bliss state of non-judgmental zero point is exactly the key for navigation in all these dimensional aspects of ourselves. So that to me would be ascension, is the ability to reach that bliss point where our vortex is rotating at a high space. We begin to create this geometrical expression that it begins to navigate in other dimensional realms.
Yeah, and you said the word 0 point. That's the singularity, the black hole, the transcending, It's all quantum physics and metaphysics. It's like, this is a science, right? So Hildegard, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, I love this term, ascension, because this is where the music's playing in here. Yes, I draw from a variety of sources. There can be various levels of awareness. Everybody can teach me something. And then it's up to me how I implement all these inputs that I can dial into with skill over time as I develop my abilities. I can draw on them to then create that ascended life right here. People on the planet have ascended. You know it when you meet them. We talked earlier about our Arcturian friend, Vivian. You know it, you feel it. You don't know the person, but you know. Some call it self-actualization. I call it self-discovery and complete genius expression. Because when you truly get what you're on the planet for, you know what gives you joy, and you're able to share that full on out. And I still have a ways to go on that one as well. But I discovered that when people understand their inner machinery and their inner programming and make decisions that completely are out of the ordinary for how they habitually would do life, things happen. They're not coincidences. That is the individual then being in their unique vortex, as Geraldine put it, right? Everything was put in the vortex by me, by the soul, before I came in here. Much like people who are expecting babies, they go and shop for strollers. Same deal. The question is, can I get in tune with that flow? And then life is easy, things come together. I may still be in my conditioned mind fighting me all the way along, depending on how well I've been able to tame that wild mind of mine and make it my willing secretary and helper. But that is an inner journey, right? This is an inner journey. And the more people take that path, then the collective resonance of the planet goes higher and higher. And this can be heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my job to make mine, and everybody else is to make theirs. And collectively, we can help one another. And it's not a hardship. It's not a me versus you. It's a together we can make that happen. And I love the synchronicities with which, when I look back the last 30 years, how people came into my life. And I'm sure many of you have the same experiences here on the panel, and maybe the listeners as well. Things are timed with such precision by our higher divine universal self. It's absolutely joyful. And when a human being has that experience once, and this is what I endeavor to do with what I call intuitive awareness consulting, because I see consciousness in pictures. I do not know what the individual deals with, yet I get this input. And when I then see how the individual goes, oh my God, I get it. And you can literally feel something pop open. And then once they have that experience, they're more encouraged to follow their inner guidance, regardless of what the mind chatter is or what's happening around in their lives. And it's a painful path. We need to learn, unfortunately, I guess, through, traumatic and painful experiences, but there is a very bright light at the end of that journey. And I envision a planet in which all human beings who want to do that in sentient work joyously then be of service to others. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm wanting to continue to learn more, do more, be more, and share more. So thank you. It's just great to be.
What's your next step, Hildegard? What's the next vision?
So for me, the next step is bringing about regular get-togethers with people. I have the Toronto Experiences group once a week, and continue to develop more an online presence as well. So do regular get-togethers with people who want not just the coaching, but maybe also in a group, because I find we trigger each other better in a group than in a one-on-one, right? And that is part of my mission. I had two visions in one of the near-death experiences: raise these children to the light, which I didn't know what it meant at the time, and then share and be of service to others, share with others, be of service. And again, know that all people on this planet, without exception, have a very powerful piece to the universal puzzle to fulfill. They have a choice. Everybody has a choice. There's nothing wrong with people not wanting to do this journey. That is fine. But if somebody is willing and want to do it, it behooves those. With awareness comes responsibility to help. So this is where I'm headed. And I'm very happy where I am. I think life is wonderful. And again, joy is a higher frequency than anything else. Combined with gratitude is fantastic. And if we can't do anything else, just write a gratitude journal every day and see what happens as one tiny step into inner ascension.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. And what about you, Geraldine? Where are we going as an individual, as a planetary race, as a galactic civilization, as cosmic voyagers, as adventures into the unknown? All that.
Boy, that's a big question, but I completely agree with Hildegard. I think that our focus should be the internal nurturing and cultivation of that bliss state moment by moment. And I think that if our focus is there, the rest will fall into place because of the mechanics of the universe and how we co-create, because that is the key to co-creation. When we enter into that bliss state, this is how we can actually affect the collective and begin to see change and begin to shift timelines from the more negative collective, potentials to something more positive. And I think that, right now we have a lot of influence, and it's deeply put into our brain subconsciously through media, all the negative potential timelines, but there isn't enough input because we're not connecting to source enough individually in our own time to the positive potential timeline. So we really need to connect to that in order to be able to clarify the vision collectively, I think.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was just thinking, I know it's so good that there seems to be an active movement. We can actually see it going on right in front of us, the collapse of the old and the awakening of the new. And it's palpable. It's just, no one knows where it's going. I don't think anyone can predict it. We have to create it.
Right,
So instead of waiting for someone to predict it for us, what are we going to create? Barbara, we're creating.
Yeah, more and more as the years go on, people who come to me for regression work are really wanting to find out what their sole purpose is for being here in this life. So people are still coming to unravel the details of any extraterrestrial encounters that they've had. But even when they come for that, more and more people are feeling like they want to know not why are they having their contacts, but what are they really here to do? So I think just in the culture in general, more and more people are being aware that they have come here from the situation of being a soul. They've chosen to come here. I did not grow up with this idea at all, and maybe the rest of you didn't either. But more and more people now of many different ages are thinking, oh yeah, that they are really an ongoing, continuing soul, and they've come into this lifetime on Earth to really make a difference, to do something really hopeful. And to me, that is very encouraging. That is an upgrading, even with all the negative things going on in the world. There are more and more people thinking about their purpose and being useful, giving some kind of service.
Well,
so I think that's really hopeful.
Well, isn't this the most exciting time to be here? Isn't it Neil, Joan, everyone? It's like,
I'm pretty excited.
It's where the shift hits the fan, really. I think so.
I think we were called for these times, and that's why we're here. And exactly. And we collectively, we've all been going through our grand initiation, personally and collectively. And I really like this talk about how as humans we're being upgraded. So, how which is really exciting. Our DNA is being upgraded. The contact with the extraterrestrials is having such a positive impact on humanity and on our future. Especially, that's what I'm hearing from everyone here today.
A quote that I really love of Joan of Angel's quote is, in order to be chosen, you must choose.
You must choose yourself. Yeah, I love that.
We all must choose. Yes, we chose to be here to discuss this. That's why we're on the panel today, because we see clearly what our mission is, and I know each of us has a mission to wake up other people around us to know our soul purpose.
Right.
It's actually really exciting.
Maybe Jacqueline could bring in some frequencies, not to put you on the spot, Jacqueline, but I know you're good at bringing the light language and bringing in the energies. And if you could get a little closer to your microphone.
That'd be great. I also have a question for Jacqueline. since you're tuning into different frequencies and different beings, are there very a range of messages that you're getting about the experiences and agendas on Earth, or is there one collective kind of download that you're getting from that? So if you want to maybe share about that, and then get into some whatever you want to share, light language, or whatever comes through.
Yeah, they usually come through with very simple messages. And I think, one thing I wanted to say is that in regard to what we're talking about with the Earth in the future and ascension going within, the star beings have shared this with me over and over, is that it's very simple. If we go into our hearts and listen to our hearts and do what we love, that's the central message that they have been giving me for well over 30, 40 years. And that it's also, releasing old patterns, releasing old limiting thoughts. So let me share, Alan was asking about the light language and that. The light language actually is amazing in terms of it activates every level. It activates the cells, it activates the chakras, the whole body, the multi-dimensional cells. It wakes everything up. It shifts the DNA, and it's a very easy way to do it. I mean, I'm having some amazing results working with people with like languages, just releasing past life stuff with their parents just in a session or two. So I just wanted to share that. I think the light languages are part of our next evolutionary step. And many people are speaking light languages globally. And what I love about it is it bypasses the mind ego. And for me, that's the point. The rest of us, all of us knows what is being said. And so the light languages sound very familiar to people. So I'll just share what comes through here. We'll see who comes through. Anaka ye tadeta kutoro sukura tare tamaha ushuku umatare tare onaha ukura taraika ki anako sukuri anakaya nahaya nahaya ushikuria taleki angataya umakari tananakaya alakari ita ushamakari yamakari naha umakawea taituru kare tanahaya Oluku naha wa wehi naha sho uaina uanaha iona kukurata eta zakuta naha ye na ushu utawa ze iana jake inukuta amakaleta umaha ionotu lakari inakatari ke makatari kotasako tataya ushu unaka ia Umaka ia, ushuku uakariita, umaka holaka, umakariita nahala. So that was from, we could say, a council of a number of beings coming through. And they're talking about, they always love to send blessings for the earth, and this will activate people's hearts and souls and will help to integrate their multidimensional selves. And in the bigger picture, they are simply saying that things are integrating at an appropriate way and at an appropriate speed, we could say, for the evolutionary process of humanity, that it's being done, that the evolutionary process is happening very quickly. It's speeding up now more than it was years ago, and that that humanity is indeed evolving and opening to their gifts and blessings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Anything coming from you, Hildegard or Geraldine or Hildegard?
Yeah, I love light language. And for me, it's simply activation. It's, as Jacqueline said, it goes beyond our logical mind because we're so conditioned to judge everything. We want to understand and question. And for me, it's been quite a challenge to let it flow through. However, I'll be glad to share something. And it's more or less from my, I will call it my Andromedan aspect, Louis Marr, because you see, when I got in touch with that particular energy, I was very much stuck in a 3D, and there was a need to stick a label on things. Over time, I feel it's not necessary anymore. But here is what is coming through for me. Ishwani ikatakanu sushata irami nisaka ula sakatananatu ikatapana manusashi ikula tikata ula namasate. Shesiga numana ihatikata ushatika namanatuku isalamina no samono. Shasia, shasia, shasia. Ikata nushata utanamanata kusai, kusai, kusai.
And which means, I guess
I
it's
do not
vibration.
know. I do not know. It's not translated for me.
It's a very gentle vibration, though.
Yeah.
Frequency.
It's so loving. I always say it feels like 1,000 cashmere sweaters hugging me.
Wow. How about you, Geraldine? Anything? I mean, not that I don't think you do like, I mean, not that you have to, but is there anything coming through you in this moment that is being downloaded?
I do speak light language, but
Oh, you
probably
do?
not at this moment. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that it's important for each of us to exercise because we can all speak light language. We all have the ability to tune into that. And I think that it's actually a wonderful exercise for us in the area of surrender to begin to channel those frequencies as they come through. And there's different ways to channel this information, whether it's through the arts. Many people, many hybrids are beginning to express their multidimensional expressions through art, through light language, through sound, through music as well. And I think that right now is a wonderful time for each of us to dive deep into that creativity, that creative part of us that can be expressed in any of these modalities. It's a wonderful exercise to train the intuitive faculties and to also it's a powerful way of healing, actually, because you can overcome a lot of traumas, emotional traumas and blockages within the body as you allow these things to flow through you. So yeah, that's what I will mention, since the topic of today is hybrids and we're speaking to and of hybrids.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an upgrade of not only hybrids, but upgrading, right? Because that's what we're talking about in regards to the hybridization. And even over the hundreds of thousands of years to us to get to this human avatar right now, the Homo sapien, all these different upgrades have occurred. And now we're cultivating these abilities to really tap into our highest potential, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, Neil, did we answer your question, past, present, and future? I mean, there's
Yeah,
still...
I think we did. So I think we did. Yeah, we didn't really answer. Okay, so let's just recap here, summarize to make sure we did, right? So we talked about the past. We really started off referring to the fact that there's no really transitory fossils in regards to the creation of not only the human race, but other species on the planet. But then that's just one aspect. And then we go into all the research, ancient civilizations research, the cycles of time, the fact that there have been other great civilizations that have existed on this planet that have been completely wiped from existence. At this point, Atlantis is pretty much, in my mind, is definitely a reality. Whether it was called Atlantis or not by the actual individuals is maybe where, the jury is out there, because we see a lot of ancient civilizations around the world talking about being descendants from a great island that existed, pretty much where Plato said, near, after the Pillars of Hercules, the Gates of Gibraltar, right, in the Atlantic Ocean. but they don't really refer to Atlantis. We hear Atlantis the first time when it comes to Plato, right? And
Well, the Atlantic Ocean is it's really the Atlantic Ocean. The Romans turned the S into a C to call it the Atlantic Ocean. So
there we go.
Every single day. But anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, so I'm saying that regardless of the title of the place, we know a lot of civilizations have been speaking about this. And this gets to the whole point of we're barely uncovering that truth now, right? So imagine 13,000 years before that, 26,000 years before that. If we're going through these 26,000 years cycles of time, if we're barely discovering the last cycle cataclysm, imagine how many cataclysms before or resets of humanity of ancient civilizations that might have existed that we cannot even trace at all. Right? Imagine an advanced civilization being wiped out. You know, there's radiation studies in Mohenjo-daro showing that looked like there was some sort of nuclear blast that occurred here. What has happened in our past is one of the greatest untold secrets of all time, right? And so as we start understanding this, it's not like, oh my God, we were so advanced. I used to think, and I'm going on a rant now because you asked this question if we answered it. I used to think that the past ancient civilizations were technologically more advanced. So I was like, you know, where are the computers? Where did they hide them? They got rid of all the computer chips, right? But then I realized the cycles of time do not talk about advancements in technology. They talk about advancements in consciousness. Mm-hmm. And when you get to a certain level of consciousness, most of the technology you have, you no longer need because you're happy with what you have. So there's a lot of ancient cultures were more connected to the planet and didn't really need to dive into, you know, other forms of technology, or had the ability to use their own human avatar. And case in point are the Pumu Punku H blocks and not the blocks, but the stones that basically look like they were melted into place and then solidified. That there was some sort of technology that transcended the external tool, right? So that goes into the past question, just to bring it to a close on that we have been advanced and we've had all types of occurrences happen on this planet, all types of experiences happen. And part of that is the hybridization of humanity. Many ancient cultures, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greek, the ancient Vedic texts refer to metaphorical depictions of a hybridization occurring with humanity, talking about clay, but it's actually like two beings in a laboratory, you know? So this has happened and it continues to happen. So to have a fear about the fact that we are a hybrid of the original humanoid in this galaxy in the first place, right? We need to really dive into this a little deeper. And that's why we're doing events like this, conferences, and having conversations.
Great. Well, let's ask Barbara Lamb, the grand dame, I would call her, of this movement, because she's studied it, she's passionate about it, she's talked to thousands of people in order to get a perspective that we can benefit from as people trying to understand the incarnational experience. So, Barbara, where would you say as a civilization we're going? What's our next step in evolution? And do you feel it is the right path, that we're moving in the direction of higher consciousness? And there's a lot of other stuff going on, but just curious, because you've done so much work for so long that you have a broad perspective. So what's the overview? Yeah.
Well, I think that consciousness on this planet it's very intermittent, it's very uneven, but it is slowly raising. And I think also that part of that dynamic of at least part of humanity raising in consciousness is the great contrast that we have with the darker side of those who are very obsessed with power and control and doing a lot of actions to take that power and control. So I think that as more and more people are getting onto that really is going on and has gone on for many, many, many centuries. I think it's highlighted more. There's more, I think, there's more contrast right now between those who are raising and opening in consciousness and those who are trying to put us down, dumb us down, make us ignorant and take control. So the more that people see that, the more that they have the opportunity to sort of lift their own consciousness. So it's very, very much of a yin-yang situation going on in the world. I think it always has been, but now it has that global aspect of this, the light and the dark, juxtaposing, like the ancient Chinese
You get
mandala.
a feeling one way or the other, like, or, I mean,
Yeah, I think that what I'm talking about here in the worldly level is being augmented from the higher levels of consciousness, that is the star beings and many spiritual beings. I think the spiritual beings have always been there. The high masters have always been there. But now I think there are more people who are bringing them through to our awareness through channeling and so forth. So you've got that too. You've got the 3D version of this going on, and then you have the non-3D version and these beings and this consciousness coming to us. So I think it's going in a good direction. I mean, I think that we're going to have to tough it through a lot of difficult stuff, and we are already. But I think overall, we are lifting up.
and what does that look like when we get there to you? What does that next level of civilization look like?
Well, many people see it as that many people and the earth itself is rising up in what they call the ascension process. And that means that we will be in a higher dimension, fourth, fifth, more like fifth or sixth dimension. And that some of humanity, well, this is what I hear from others. Some of humanity will be rising up in frequency and will be living in a whole different way. And some of humanity may not elevate in that particular way and will be living in the three-dimensional oppositional existence that humanity lives in, or so much of humanity is living in. So I think it might be a long time before the 3D people who are going to keep being in opposition in every way and tough it through. For them, I think it's going to take a long time for them to come along with others who are raising in consciousness and maybe experiencing that actual ascension. So I am not an expert on ascension, but this is just a perspective from what I'm getting so far from knowing and hearing from a lot of people.
Thank you.
It's basically a good direction, and we have to really work at it. This isn't going to just magically, mystically happen. Poof.
Well, let's talk to one of the angels, Joan. Yes. Joan, because I know you have a big vision of the future because you're part of it.
We're all part of this future, thank goodness. And we all came here for our mission, which is to be part of this ascension process. We are the leaders, we're the guides, we're the ones who've been awakened first and opening the door. That's why I always tell Neil, portal to ascension to me is like we enter the doorway, we're on the ship and we're going higher. And I do believe that on one hand, there's a level on the planet which is to suppress consciousness, and that's what it's here to do, which is part of our own awakening. So it's that balance. And I think that I do believe all is unfolding for the highest good of all concerned. And we talked about trusting that that's going to happen. And by seeing it happen, we also are part of it unfolding. So,
Beautiful. Beautiful. So Neil, should we wrap up, you're saying?
Yeah.
Should we
let's,
go around and get like closing statements and?
Yeah, let's go around and do some closing statements. Yeah.
Yeah, Hildegard.
Well, sticking with the future, I think the children being born, they come in with the consciousness that maybe we cannot even connect to. I see it in my own children. I'm not sure what it's going to be in my grandchildren, but those who have grandchildren have said as much. And I think it's really the journey inward, the lotus opening at a different speed, at different times for different people. But the potential is there. And I think it's all about knowledge transfer. We are in the era of knowledge transfer. And as we can share, and it doesn't have to be in a lecture or in a book or whatever, these are all good mediums, but we shouldn't underestimate the little interaction you have with the person that you're meeting anywhere in the city, on the bus stop, in the subway, or wherever, at the gas station. That little interaction, even though it's not conscious, it on a deeper level, it impacts everybody you touch. And I think by us being who we came here to be and learning more about healing old patterns and being more joyful, bringing my own vibration to a higher level, it will ripple off step by step. And again, I'm not sure on timelines either. I'm not privy to know that. But I'm very confident that in my lifetime, I will see major shifts. And I have seen major shifts already. All of you who were around 30 years ago, maybe I am the oldest one in the group, I don't know. But it wasn't like that. The discussions weren't there. The bookstores weren't there. The conferences, you really had to go and know where it was to get certain publications even. So the last 3 decades, it was just rapid transformation, one after the other. So I'm super optimistic for the future. And counting on the new ones coming in, educating us.
Yes. Yeah. What about you, Jacqueline? Where are you going?
Yes,
And how are you getting there? No.
Well, I think part of it that feels really important to me has to do with more of the hybridization programs, more of the star beings are integrating hybrids onto Earth. And with more hybrid children, more star children being here, they are going to, just by being around them, will help to raise the consciousness of humanity. There are more hybrid children being integrated now. I have a daughter in another country who I communicate with telepathically, who's hybrid, and so I think I see that as a hopeful kind of gift. I see the hybrid children coming in, the star children coming in, as being this gift, and so that humanity can evolve, people can become more aware, and so that we will have more of this going on globally to really help support humanity in their journey with evolution.
Oh,
We're here
thank
for the evolution.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask Geraldine what you think about what Jacqueline said as compared to what Marina Sorin says, that she's afraid that the hybrids are taking over and wiping out the human part.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's exactly what I wanted to add as a piece to this conversation today.
Yeah.
Because I think that the hybridization program is the missing link to understanding a deeper understanding of what the soul is, what the human experience is about. I think that experiencing and understanding the soul and how it navigates is depending on how we maintain and cultivate our life force. We are choosing the kind of participation, whether in parasitic programs of hybridization or high vibration hybridization. And I'm sorry, I wrote notes, and I can't do that. So I just have to speak it out when it comes.
Talk about this, because this is really a contention point within our community right now. The resistance to hybrids, the moving forward as human. So talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why ET contact is important. It's not so much about thinking about ET, extraterrestrial contact, lights in the sky. We're talking about the consciousness aspect of it. Our ability to cultivate life force in order to interact with aspects of ourselves multidimensionally is essential to understanding how the human can even access free will. We're waking up from the dream state of being in a terrestrial matrix hologram type experience where we are met with contrast in the three-dimensional plane, parasitic intentions and then light and expansive intentions. So in order to transcend all of the parasitic experiences that we as humans are here to experience, whether it's in our relationship lives, traumas, or in interdimensional aspects of ourselves, the human needs to train itself in order to understand how to co-create. By entering into that bliss state, as we mentioned, we have the ability of shifting and deprogramming matrix programming and navigating our everyday life, and in dream state and in higher dimensions, begin to understand the agreements that we have made ancestrally, collectively, in higher dimensional planes for our interaction in hybridization. So, and we can't just paint the picture that it's only high vibration, because remember, we can't negate the entire very parasitic part of the hybridization program, which is because we in ourselves have shadow and light. So the most unconscious parts of us that co-create negative hybridization programs speak to the shadows that need to be integrated in our subconscious mind, and as well in the collective subconscious as a whole. So I do not believe that there is a taking over the world of anything. I think that internally we are our own universe. We have to remember that we in our own self, in our own sphere of our multidimensional body, we are co-creating a reality. Many realities, many dimensional accesses. And so we have to understand that as co-creators of our reality, our every thought, intention defines the kind of experience that we're having, even in these higher dimensions. So we have the ability of alchemizing this low frequencies within us in order for when we reach these higher states of interdimensionality and contact, we can begin to weave through, reintegrate even the fragments of ourselves through the hybridization program, through other ET beings that we interact and also channel through us, are all expressions of our genetic code. It's all from the genetic code is being expressed when we are interacting in these realms. So just to summarize that, we're not victims of absolutely anything, because we need to understand that we're co-creators on all dimensional levels. And that's something that, we're just kind of waking up and getting very clear about what that really looks like and the mechanics of that.
Right. So I just have a follow-up question to that. So it seems like, and this is what I've been gravitating towards, is that a lot of us just have a few pieces of the puzzle, and there's so many more dimensional levels of awareness that even if we're tapped in, we could only be getting one piece of the puzzle and not understanding the bigger picture. So when it comes to, like, from what you're saying here, we've been told, I've heard many times that this is a free will universe, right? And within the whole free will universe, there's a split within this community of free will universe people of our free will is being violated and our free will cannot be violated. So what's your take? Does free will get violated, or is that not possible?
In my humble opinion, I do not believe, first of all, free will is something that we have to become aware that we have. And even in that, we are an organism as a part of a complex multiverse. We are deeply interdependent. In a sense, we are one. Remember, we are one. So we can't think we're one and then think about being parasitic and being victimized. Because if you're one, you are working as one evolving collectively. So there's all your responsibility. It's completely in your realm of co-creation in order to navigate. And you know, when you really start researching ancient texts on alchemy and on all these kinds of, just what you were talking about earlier, Neil, you really begin to understand that this is something that has been a hidden truth for a very long time. People understand for many centuries that we are in charge of our experience completely. It's just a matter of understanding the mechanics of co-creation. And once you do understand that, you can now begin to work with these shadow parts of yourself. The darkest that we can reach in this lifetime speaks to the highest levels that you have access to in many lifetimes. And many people are highly ascended masters, you can say, or life force cultivators for many centuries that incarnate into this timeline in order to break some of these things and to evolve from these shadows. You know, this is what it means. The hybrids that are coming in come designed, is engineered perfectly to begin to have the knowledge to address the shadows that they're going to encounter in their lifespan. So
yes. Thank
Engineered.
Barbara, what do you think about that? Because you've dealt with people who have been victims, have been, you know, masters of their fate and so many levels. How do you think about that and deal with that?
Well, a lot of the individuals who have come to me for work are people who are really now wanting to raise in consciousness. They are raising in consciousness, and they are wanting to give more and more service. Now, many of these people had already, when very young, in their growing up years, were horribly abused, very often by their own families or people they knew nearby. And so they've gotten through that, through the dark night of the soul, so to speak, and now are more in the light and wanting to move forward and give service. So now these are just a number of individuals, maybe a couple hundred of them I'm thinking of, but there probably are more people like that in the world too, who have really gone through extremely difficult personal experiences, which I happen to know about being a therapist. But now they really are evolving, and they're already doing a lot more enlightened service and want to do even more. So I think that just taking from this small grouping of people, that's a very hopeful sign that this is happening here and there in humanity.
It's a hopeful sign that people are becoming more conscious of.
Yeah, they're working through the difficulties that have been put upon them, the victimization of them. And many of them, as one of you mentioned, are ending the line of abuse in their particular family, because we know that's gone on usually from generation to generation to generation. And so many of them now, I'm amazed at the number of people whom I'm working with and whom I know in various ways, who are ending that cycle of abuse and really going forward in a much more giving service, enlightened way. So I think that's very hopeful.
And to be masters of their own destiny is what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
Well, this is a great place to start a conversation, Neil. But we should wrap up, because this is the kind of, I think, in-depth discussion that we'll have for the Hybrid Starseed Conference.
Right. So it'll be this plus so much more information for around 8 to 9 hours a day with unlimited replay access, happening in 2 weekends. And I pinned the link already. It's in the description. And it's our second annual. It's just there's so much awareness being shared as we continue to move forward in this upliftment of humanity and start realizing more and more of, our experience here. So it's going to be incredible. Yeah, Alan.
And you know what? It's important. Let me just say one thing. It's
Yes.
important because so much is going on in the world around us. And it's almost like an opposing force. So this strengthening from within is the most important for us to really know we can come together and that we are galactic. I mean, I just think it's critical to get through this next period of time.
I mean, the interesting part for me is that you can't talk about star seeds and hybrids without, like this conversation demonstrated, without talking about the soul, free will, destiny, the human race. It includes so much, and most people leave that part out of the conversation. And we're just making the picture a little bigger because it's so important, I think, to be a fully embodied species, whatever you are. Fully embodied consciousness, and to include it all. And that's why it's so exciting. So this has been really fun for me.
If I may throw this in, if you look into hermetics, and somebody said that earlier, if you understand that all human beings have the privilege of creating their own universe, and my perception of my universe is quite different of that of the onlooker. Having said that, a lot of my perceptions are really just that. So what I perceive to be a threat to me, and I label it as them, are nothing else but a reflection of the darkness I haven't dealt with within myself. So that's why I often say, it's all about, am I coming from separation and destruction, or I am in the frequency of conscious creation? Because where my energy goes, my focus goes, my energy flows. I don't need to do anything else, but really pull my energies back, be in that space of joyfulness and gratitude, and consciously create with the flow of the universe. Because you know what, as a parent, I would have never sent any of my kids intentionally to go suffer. So whoever is our creator, creatress, whatever you label, want to stick on it, we are here to live a blissful, happy, healthy, abundant life in a loving community. That's what I am here to create. And I think we are on a really good trajectory to create this. And obviously in your own journey, you notice you have massive reaction. If you have a lot of headwind, you know you're heading in the right direction. If things are not and again, somebody says it's a contradiction of term. You say you want to be in the flow. Yes, energetically, I want to be in the flow. But when I first step out of that victim perception, and I start to put boundaries in, and I say no more to this, and I'm no longer friends with that. There is this initial inertia that you have to break through. And that's painful. And that's why it's so difficult to do. And I think that's where our role is, to be of support, especially in these beginning stages. And once people realize they can create unconsciously things that they don't like, but now that they're aware and want to take responsibility for the consequences of the unconscious choices, now they can step into conscious creation. And that's when the fun begins.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. This has been a very enlightening and very intelligent conversation. And
It's been really great.
Yeah, very evenly spaced and great perspective. So I've enjoyed it. And Joan is always great. Joan's in there. I know you're tired, Joan, but any
4 a.m.
I was up at 4 this morning, so
I know. Any final words from you?
Yeah, you have any closing remarks, Joan?
You know, this has just been fantastic. I think it's all about keep doing us, keep doing that which we're being guided to do, because we're being guided to step into the highest of paths, and we trust that we're being led. So I think that diving into these programs that have been impacting us and others and doing it together to fill in the missing gaps is just really productive and healing. And that's what my guides are telling me.
Yes.
this, you know?
I think it's just great to keep having these conversations, Neil, with Portal
It
to
is.
because
It's so fun. It's the greatest story ever told. Who
Right.
are we and where do we come from? You know?
And hasn't been told before, you know?
and we're actually creating that portal of ascension by talking about it. We're actually
Straight up.
mm,
100%. It's beautiful.
yeah,
Like,
manufacturing it, manifesting it.
right,
Yes.
right.
And everyone here is so passionate about where we're going. It's always exciting to be around fellow travelers.
Right, to be inspired in that level. So, all right, I want to close up in just a few here. I'm going to give my closing remarks, make a couple of announcements, and then we're going to end with a
Yes.
poem. But Alan, do you feel complete? Do you have anything else
I
to
just
share?
want to say, yeah, and I just want to say the chat on the New Realities YouTube was very alive today and very exciting,
Yes,
very
yeah.
participatory. And that's like showing, we're not talking in isolation. We're talking to a kind of frequency. We're putting out this energy that people are hearing or feeling, or we're doing something to the field, to the quantum field, no matter what, because we're all
Yes.
gearing our consciousness towards a really positive awakening of the human, whatever we're going to become, beings. And yes, it is the most exciting thing I can think of. So thank you. Thank you, Neil, Joan, Barbara, Geraldine, Jacqueline, and of course, Hildegard. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. And thank you to everybody. And so I'm just going to do a couple announcements here. And but first, here's my closing remarks on this, bringing it all together. So there's a few things that were kind of like the bottom line of everything that we've discussed here today, and things that came up quite often were the inner work and doing the,
Right.
doing really just like focusing on ourselves. And I refer to this often, but the article I wrote on what does UFOs have to do with meditation, it's really about shifting our own frequency to really connect to, all that is out there. So the inner work, like Joan and I were having lunch a couple hours ago, and I was saying, like, it's so interesting that if we all just did the inner work and we all found a place of love, self-love, kindness, and compassion, we wouldn't even need to be presenting as much information. We would just walk around, and just that energy, like, have you been around someone that feels so 100% present in their body, so full of life and love in a balanced way that their energy just passing by you just shifts you? Has that ever happened to you? Imagine if so many of us did that work, right? And that's what it's all about. That's why there's a huge component on PTA specifically about the tools to do this work, so that we can get to the place of kindness and compassion. But we really need to be kind to ourselves, because we're sometimes the most violently brutal, to our own bodies, not only from what we eat, but from our own thoughts, like, would you want anybody thinking all those thoughts about yourself that you do about yourself? So it's like, how do we get to that point where we do this work and we can emanate that? And it's really getting to that 0 point, that stillness. There's so many tools available for us to get there. And even if you feel that you're falling short of where you want to be, just being present with it, allowing yourself to feel these emotions, not compartmentalizing yourself from your own experience. I've gone through depression, anxiety for so much of my life, and not until I finally decided to start feeling it instead of just putting it to the side and just acting normal, I started healing it, feeling it to heal it. And so that's something that's coming up here. And another component that I really loved was, we spoke multiple times, and Hildegard started us off on this about creating consciously, right? And that's another thing I've been thinking about lately, is like, we are creating all the time, but we're just like loose cannons, completely unaware that we're doing it. So we're just like, oh my God, what just happened? What just happened? Why is this happening to me? But we're literally creating it. What will happen if we become conscious of our creation collectively? That's when literal magic starts appearing, and we can manifest things out of thin air, So that's ultimately where we're heading. And I'm excited for it. And so we'll continue the conversation here on Portal to Ascension. Again, I want to just appreciate every single one of you for really just being here and tuning into this and engaging in the discussion. We had a lot of comments, a lot of people here. And the final couple things I want to share now is, one more time, I want to talk about the conference coming up in 2 weekends. And then I'm going to close out with a poem that I wrote 13 years ago called Hybrid Polarity. Okay, so I think it's in perfect alignment with today's topic. Even though it's not specifically about hybrids, it's about duality and hybridization in general. So we'll get into that. But let me share screen And Alan, do you want to kind of just go over this again for us, just about this conference for all the people who didn't hear us?
Yeah, we're going to pick up this conversation for 2 whole days on August 27th and 28th. And it's not, in a way nonstop. Of course, you can watch the replays. You don't have to do it all in one sitting, but it's this sort of intensity and depth of discussion that all the people at this conference are going to share, and getting into more and more aspects of what it is to really be a race in transformation. So Marina Sarin, who I mentioned, and Geraldine, of course, and Tyler Ellison bringing in the SSINI, Mary Edwards, Phil Gruber, Mary Rodwell, who's like Barbara Lamb. She has been around a long time and has a great overview. There's Barbara and there's Mary. Those are the masters in our field. And it's exciting. Of course, Vivian Cheval, who Joan said, it's like you really are in the company of an ET when you're with Vivian. It's really interesting. So that's some of the highlights for me there.
Yep, and it's our second annual, and it's the Starseed Conference combining with the ET Hybrids Conference. And yeah, it's a couple weeks. Again, you get unlimited replay access. There's going to be some other announcements there. Really fun event. Lots of information, lots of awareness. But beyond that, what people really, the testimonial we get is connection, you know, not only connection to others where we've had similar experiences, thoughts, and now we realize there's others out there, but also connection to ourselves and who we are, our own souls, and the depth of our connection to the stars. You know, that's what's really all about, is understanding that. And I'll say this thing that I've been saying often lately is that one day I told somebody, you know, I feel like I'm from the stars. And this person said to me, I'm not from the stars, I'm from Earth. And then I said, well, do you know that Earth is in space? So we are a star to another system, you know, and ultimately we're all connected. There's no separation. And that's what we're really striving to show here on Portal to Ascension.
Earth is in.
But that's what's so interesting. The more we talk about this, the more we develop a language and understanding, because as a new culture comes into being, these ideas are still abstracted, and the more they're kind of made distinguished, the more they become a cultural artifact that can be exchanged with other beings just coming into this field of awareness. And then we can say, oh yeah, this is what I mean by consciousness, because that's still floating, or starseed. So we're kind of raising up a civilization in the process of becoming. That's how I see it.
I love it.
Yeah. So.
All right, everybody.
So go to portaltoascension.org and join us in 2 weeks, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. And for many, 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 many decades and hundreds of years to come, because I got another 300 to 400 years left on this planet, and I'm going to take full advantage of every single second. So just watch us and please be a part of this movement.
Right. And the internet's forever anyway. So yes, maybe, perhaps, we'll see.
When the Akashic Records download instead, we start using the organic timeline, then, you know, we're already on it. So, okay, here we go. This is called hybrid polarity, but we just had a huge experience of a lot of information together. And when there are numbers, I like to breathe together and just synergize and harmonize ourselves. So we're going to take a moment here. We're just going to have a few moments of silence, and I'm going to guide us through some breath. And just at this moment, just get comfortable. Keep your eyes open. You can close them. You can lay down. And we're just going to breathe normally. Just breathe normally, accepting reality just as it is. Not trying to change anything. Feeling the air go in through your nostrils, into your lungs, and then exhale out of your mouth. Just feeling the air inhale and exhale. After your next exhale, inhale, deep inhale, and then sigh it out. Let's sigh it out together. One more time, inhale with a sigh. One more time, inhale, deep inhale. Inside out. And just allow for all the information the awareness shared, not just in this panel today, not just what resonates with you, but whatever resonates with you in all of creation, all the messages that are there for you right now, all the experiences that will allow for your harmony, for your empowerment, for your upliftment to fully integrate in yourself. As we've created these activations and we've tapped into these dimensions of awareness that are coming down right now in order to create the full understanding, the full picture of who we are and how incredibly beautiful all of creation is. And we allow all these frequencies to integrate into our being, to become a part of our wholeness, to integrate to the earth, into the solar system, into the galaxy and beyond, permeating all of creation so that we can exist in harmony, unity, peace, and unconditional love. And so it is. You can keep your eyes closed, you can open them up. And I'm just going to get into this poem here, and this is the closing for today. Hybrid polarity. I heard Gaia crying, only dying to be reborn again, realizing there is no separation. Even the government is our own projection. So why are you tripping? Protesting and rejecting is only self-hating. We are the sons of men, goddess of Zen, sons of God. Call me Zeus. Here now to choose, linearity, ends of calendar let loose. Time is fluid. From the beginning of creation taught by the ancient druids, shamanistic, ritualistic, prolific, sickest lyricists, Atlantean crystal buried in the West. Lemurian tablets, Mount Shasta lightworker fanatics, delusional normality where we only believe what we see. Tap into the fifth dimensional frequency, existing in multiple dimensional realities, manifesting in planetary systems to teach, a journey through the darkness taking us to the peak of duality so we can once again see clearly, remember who we truly be. Multifaceted beings, soul freeing, the pyramids will start to spin, disintegrate the word sin, wrap my crystals with copper and tin. Conduct electricity electromagnetically, traveling astrally through the Merkaba, speed up my aura to 3/4 the speed of light. To enter simultaneous time, make the unconscious believe this, glasses on my eyes to see the transit of Venus, solar flare, sun gaze. Decalcify my third eye and enter the maze, vibrationally raised. There are many pathways to the same place. Source clears this illusionary haze. This is the end of days and the beginning of a new unconditional phase. And the beginning of a new unconditional loving phase. Take a deep breath in with me. Let it out. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank
Thank
you.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Very beautiful.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you all so much. Barbara, Hildegard, Jacqueline, Geraldine. Love you guys. Thank you. Alan.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Neil. I'm going to call you. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks,
Love you all.
everybody.
Check you
Lots
guys
of love
later.
to you all. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.